is R. Scott Nelson, and I'm a retired Navy crypto-linguist, a Spanish and Russian interpreter. And while I was in the Navy, I spent most of my time listening to the human voice on tape, transcribing thousands of hours, logged in recovering the human voice and getting it on paper. Never was, in my entire time in the Navy, never was really that interested in Sasquatch. So it's when I first got involved in this research, I really did not have an agenda, and because I don't describe myself as a Bigfoot guy. I'm a language guy. And how it really began is one day when my son was about 12 years old, he had a day off from school when I still had to teach that day, so he went to school with me. And after I'd finished teaching my classes for the day, we were sitting in my classroom with my computer open, and he had a school project that he had to complete. And the assignment was just write a story or write a story or a little paper on anything that you have an interest in. So like all 12-year-old boys anyway, he wanted to either write it on UFOs, the Loch Ness Monster, or Sasquatch, Bigfoot. So we were Googling information on Bigfoot, and he said, "Dad, what do you think Bigfoots sound like?" And I remembered some 70s grade B movie that I'd seen many years ago, and I just let out like a whoop and a holler and whoa, you know. And he looked at me funny and said, "Dad, that's not what Bigfoots sound like." And I said, "Well, okay, let's see if there's anything on here on Google that we can find out what Bigfoots sound like." And I typed in I remember this very vividly. I typed in exactly Bigfoot sounds. And what it led me directly to is the BFRO website, the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, and to a specific page on their website that had a prompt there for what was labeled samurai chatter. I said, "Well, this looks good." So I clicked on that, and immediately heard something that mesmerized me. Vocalizations in which were evident language articulations. And I played it over again and over again and over again to the point where my son said, "Dad, what's wrong with you? What's the matter with you? What are you doing?" And I said, "Stephen, there's language in these sounds." He says, "What are you talking about, Dad? It sounds like two apes fighting." To me, that's what it sounds like. And I said, "I know it does it real time, but I can tell." And I know that the reason that I could tell is because I had spent so many hours with the headphones on, what we refer to as sitting the cans, listening to the human voice on tape, manipulating it, speeding the human voice up, slowing it down to recover, the different languages, and getting it down on paper, transcribing it, what we call transcription. And I said, "Stephen, there's absolutely, definitely language being articulated here, but it's not human." And he says, "How do you know that?" And I said, "Well, because of what I did in the Navy." I said, we need to get a hold of these tapes and slow it down like what Dad used to do in the Navy." And that's what essentially started me on this whole thing. I walked away that day knowing three things about these tapes. And first thing is that it was not a human. Second thing was that it was most definitely a complex language. And the third thing was that it could not have been faked. And so I began to doing a little bit of detective work, trying to find out, where I could get a hold of these tapes. And I began to read up on Bigfoot. I suddenly started to become a Bigfoot guy because I realized I had to find out as much about, this phenomenon that as I could if I was going to make any sense out of it. So I read every book I could get a hold of, and in none of them that were available at the time, I might have read 20 books, there was not even a mention that Sasquatch might have language, or that he was intelligent enough, and certainly it was never touched on whether or not they were sentient creatures or anything like that. They were, at that time when we first got involved, the theory that was most dominant in the Bigfoot community was that Sasquatch was a remnant Gigantopithecus, a Gigantopithecus blackie, which is nothing more really than a gigantic gorilla, right? So there was never a mention or even a thought that this gigantic gorilla would have language, right? So, but I feel that our work has shown that they most certainly do have language. Whatever it is that's speaking on those tapes, whether it's Sasquatch or something else, whatever it is not human, but it has language. That I can say, that is a definitive thing that I can state. Now I have people say, well, how do you know it's Sasquatch? Well, where they were taped, it has to either be Sasquatch or some other alien race, right? But you have to go with the simplest theory first, right? Because of all of the other experiences that these hunters had up there at the same camp, right? It has to be a Sasquatch. So that's what got me started, and I eventually was able to track down who had taped these original tapes. Alan Barry taped his in 1972. Ron Moorhead taped his in 1974. And I eventually met with them in California. And after they heard and saw, some of the work that I had done on their tapes, their immediate reaction to that was, we've been looking for you for 35 years. Because we can't get anybody else to believe us. I says, I cannot believe that I am the first guy to detect language in these tapes. And he says, and they both looked at me and said, what are you talking about? We always knew. We've known since the beginning that these were creatures that were speaking to each other in a language that is incomprehensible to us. And I said, well, you're most definitely right there. The three tapes that compose the Barry Moorhead tapes, we have over 90 minutes of recorded vocalizations, and mounting upwards of 75 pages of transcription. We're always planning new expeditions. We're not always able to do it, but Ron and we've conducted 8 expeditions up to the original Sierra camp, and we're always planning more. And we've had a lot of strange things happen up there, a lot of phenomena that has to be attributed to Sasquatch. And a lot of other phenomena that's it's hard to explain, even considering Sasquatch. But so we're always planning. We have not been back up. I've not been back up there with Ron for 2 summers now. He always gets up there at least once or twice every summer. But we've always got it in future plans that we're going to try to get up there more, because we always have hopes that one of these times, we will capture evidence, duplicate the original evidence, which is the main thing we need to get it published. But at this point, we've spent the last 5-6 years soliciting evidence from other Bigfoot researchers that are out in the field all the time, making recordings. So I've received dozens of audio clips over the last 5-6 years. Right? Some of them, most of them, not very useful. The ones that I believe are coming from the same creature as the Barry Morehead tapes, those are very short morpheme streams, if not even just nothing more than a grunt or a moan, which I cannot, my expertise is not analyzing grunts and moans, but there have been a few quick little morpheme streams, but it's not really enough to say, for me to come out and say, yes, that's a Sasquatch, or yes, that's the same creature that's on the Barry Morehead tapes. So that's what we've been trying to do for the last 5 or 6 years, and we're not sure that it's ever going to happen. We're not sure that the situations, the circumstances that enabled those hunters up there at the original Sierra camp will ever be duplicated again. So it looks like we may just have to publish what we have and hope for the best. Hope that someday, we will get the evidence. We will get the duplication of the evidence. There's a lot of witness reports that are not really talked about much, like at Bigfoot conferences, where there are UFO sightings and Bigfoot sightings in the same proximity, same time and place, or close enough in proximity that the witness believes there is some connection there. I personally have had weird experiences up there at that Sierra camp with Ron and my son. Nothing UFO related, but some things that could be considered beyond the normal, paranormal experiences. Ron and the other hunters up there they've not seen a UFO come down on land or anything like that, but what they have seen is orbs traveling between the trees, and they would see it travel through the trees and go up over different ridges and up over and disappear over a mountain. They've had strange sounds that Ron calls it, almost sounds like a tuning fork, like somewhere in the sky is a massive tuning fork that gets hit, and they just hear this vibratory sound, and almost to the point to where they can feel it, that continues on for several minutes and then finally dissipates. Things like that. I personally have not experienced that up there. I guess if there was a message that I want people to get, because like I say, I started out with no agenda. I kind of have an agenda now, having been in the Bigfoot research community and experiencing some of the human aspects of this research, is that there's a group, a segment of the Bigfoot research community that believes we have to kill them. We have to kill one at least and dissect it in order to prove the fact that they exist. My argument is that because these creatures have language, that they are exactly what the Native Americans, virtually every tribe of Native Americans has always told us that they are a tribe of wild human beings. Not like us, very different than us, but a branch of the human tree. And again, my argument is that if we are going to define them by the same standards that we define ourselves, It's language that defines them as sentient beings, intelligent, sentient, sapient beings, much more closely related to us than they are to a giant gorilla. And that if we were going to document the existence of a tribe or a branch of human beings, we wouldn't have to kill them to do it. We would do it in the same way that we would document any other wild tribe. We know there's still Amazonian tribes out there that have not fully been documented. Do we have to kill one of them and dissect him before we accept the fact that they exist? No, we wouldn't do it. We would do it through contact and document their existence in that way. So one of my biggest things that I would like to say is that these creatures are sentient, intelligent creatures that should not be killed or even captured in order to document their existence. The best way to get in contact with our research is go to Ron Moorhead's website, which is bigfootsounds.com. And on there you can get a copy of Ron's book, which actually has a CD that goes with it, that has prompts on there where he talks about specific sounds that he's heard, and then you can go to the CD and actually hear the sounds that, as he's talking about it in the narrative of his book. But bigfootsounds.com is where you can catch up on most of our work.